Firstly, if I may just comment on what I've just been listening to this morning to the sub-postmasters and their families. Fujitsu would like to apologise for our part in this appalling miscarriage of justice. We were involved from the very start. We did have bugs and errors in the system, and we did help the Post Office in their prosecutions of the sub-postmasters. For that, we are truly sorry. To your question, Chair, around our ethics, I believe we are an ethical company. The company today is quite different to the company in the early 2000s, and clearly we need to demonstrate that both to our customers, to government, and to the wider society here in the UK.
I've got in front of me, Mr. Patterson, the Fujitsu Code of Conduct. It says, we treat customers, business partners and competitors fairly and with respect. Did you live up to those values when it came to the sub-postmasters?
No, we did not. It is very clear from the evidence before the committee and also in the inquiry that our standards were not at the level that we adhere to and state, as you've rightly read. I am personally appalled by the evidence that I have seen and what I have saw on the television drama and the statements I've seen from the victims to the inquiry. So we did not stand up to that in those periods of time.
And do you accept that Fujitsu evidence was used to put innocent people in prison?
Yes, there was evidence from us. We did have we were supporting rather the Post Office in their prosecutions. There was data given from us to them to support those prosecutions, so yes.
Do you accept that before 2010 your staff knew that there were problems with the Horizon system?
The information that was shared with the Post Office as part of our contract with them was very clear. So the Post Office also knew there were bugs and errors. They also
just to zero in on this, did staff in your organisation before 2010 know that there were problems with the Horizon system?
So I believe that
Simple yes or no?
Well, I don't personally know, Chair. I think the inquiry is looking at that very point that you.
What's your gut feel?
My gut feel would be yes.
Okay. So you've said that you're an ethical company. You've said that your evidence was used to put innocent people in prison. You've said that staff in your organisation knew that there were problems with the system. Can you tell us how much you now think your company should contribute to the compensation bill?
The inquiry is dealing with some very complex matters over...
But is there a moral obligation, Mr. Patterson, for you to contribute?
I think there is a moral obligation for the company to contribute, and I think the right place to determine that is when our responsibility is very clear. There are many parties involved in this travesty.
But I've just read your last set of accounts which have been published. You've not made any provision in those accounts for a contribution to the compensation, but you're telling the committee today that you believe there is at least a moral obligation for Fujitsu to contribute.
When the inquiry finishes...
That's a simple yes or no.
Well, so
is there a moral obligation for Fujitsu
I've already
to contribute?
answered...
It's okay, you can keep going.
Okay, so yes, I believe there is a moral obligation, and I've already said that. I think it's also important that the inquiry deals with these very complex matters with all the parties involved. Yes, we have a part to play. Yes, the Post Office. Already this morning we've talked about lawyers, we've talked about the law. I think all of those matters need to be discovered to bring transparency and to bring the truth. And in that context, absolutely, we have a part to play and to contribute to the redress, I think is the words that Mr. Bates used, the redress fund for the sub-postmasters.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lavery.
Thanks, Chair. Mr. Patterson, do you accept that the existence of a Fujitsu Covert unit, as shown on the ITV documentary, actually existed, whereby members of your team were able to access sub-postmasters' computer systems in their own officers and were able to change data without sub-postmasters knowing that had been done?
I don't recognise the term covert. I wasn't there at the
time. Did it happen? Was that happening?
So we have already stated that there was remote access to these systems. What took place or did not take place in those interventions is certainly, I know, one of the streams of work that the inquiry are looking at as well. But there was remote access.
I mean, covert means in many ways secretly. If you've got people in your offices or wherever accessing remotely the sub-postmasters' accounts and altering them, that's covert, isn't it? So without the sub-postmasters having any idea whatsoever of that happening, in fact, it would border on, I'm not a solicitor, but certainly would border being on illegal in my view.
The support and the interventions from remotely from Fujitsu has been documented, and it is clear. The Post Office was certainly aware of that remote access, and that was clear for some period of time.
The Post Office denied that, didn't it?
I believe they did.
So the Post Office weren't telling the truth at the time. Is that
just
your
know
understanding?
So I only know what I know, and I know that certainly as part of that process, the remote access was documented and communicated.
What would you say to that, Mr. Reid, that the Post Office were very much aware but denied it? Mr. Patterson, why at the time, you knew that there was glitches in the system? Why did you sit back and do absolutely nothing about it?
I don't know. I really don't know. And on a personal level, I wish I did know. Following my appointment in 2019, I've looked back on those situations for the company and the evidence I've seen, and I just don't know. What I do know is the inquiry is looking at this very point of who knew what and when, and what action they did or did not take to draw attention to the concerns. I just don't know.
Mr. Reid, in I think it was 2015, the Post Office executive Paula Venables told the committee that she believed that the prosecutions were sound. I mean, things have changed dramatically, obviously. Do you think the Post Office attempted to mislead Parliament and the public to cover up its own failings?
I can't specifically comment on that. I think what's become very evident clearly is that we've got a number of cases that have come to light. We've seen 2,500 colleagues come forward in the Horizon shortfall scheme. We've seen a number of overturned convictions. Clearly, Sir Wynne will be looking very carefully at what has happened, and I think we're all very keen to get to the bottom of this. I've been very, very clear since I joined the organisation that the Post Office simply can't move forward until such time as proper redress has been determined and, more importantly, has been paid out and given to those victims of this scandal. We know that, and certainly from our perspective, we will provide everything we can to Sir Wynne so that he can make these pronouncements. I know it's a frustration for the committee that, certainly in my instance, I wasn't in the organisation and you would like specific answers. It's very difficult to do that, but
well, we would expect you to know the history given your full cooperation with the inquiry, Mr. Reid.
Well, absolutely, and that is exactly what we're doing. We are providing all and full cooperation with the inquiry, and that's clearly the right place for us to apportion blame when Sir Wynne has made his pronouncements. That's very, very clear, and we want to make sure that he does that and does that well.
Chair, can I just say, I've asked 3 or 4 questions. I haven't had one answer yet. And the reality is you've got the head of the Post Office, head of Fujitsu, that department, and the answers have been absolutely negative. If we bring in people in front of the committee, we would expect them at least to have a knowledge of the history of what's happened. Something as big as this, and the answers have been, well, I haven't had any answers to the questions which I've asked, and I'm not frustrated, I'm absolutely appalled at the answers which I've received. Thanks.
Mr. Gullis, briefly.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Patterson, Can you tell me when specifically management in Fujitsu, ideally the month and the year, knew about the Horizon system being faulty?
I can't answer a month and a year to your question.
Not even a year?
Well,
because I'm assuming you said at the beginning to the chair that there were issues with the system. So is it that there were issues with the system from day one, or is it something that was discovered later on? Because as reported in the Eye this month, near identical, I use a quote there, errors were found in an earlier post office IT project supplied by a subsidiary of Fujitsu, ICL Pathway, which was in 1999. So I ask again, when were management aware, and if you're unable to answer now, will you commit to asking executives to formally write to the chair of the committee to provide that detail?
I'll say two things. First of all, there were known bugs and errors in the system at a very early stage. You asked me the month and year, I can't give you the month and year, but from the very start, there were bugs and errors in the system.
Why did this earlier project fail? Why was the trial of the system showed errors in ICL Pathway, which could have led to potentially thousands of sub-postmasters being rejected? Why was this earlier system, which is near identical to Horizon, why was that flashing up errors?
So I don't know what was happening in 1995 to 1999. What I do know is that there were bugs and errors in the system when it rolled out. In any large IT project, there will always be some bugs and errors in any system, particularly of this scale. The important thing is, what do we do with that information? Do we take that information and share it with the post office? Yes, we did. How the post office then chose to use that information in their prosecutions is entirely on the post office's side.
So you accept there were faults with the system, Mr. Patterson, but, and you say you pass it on to the post office and basically pass the buck from what I just heard there, but to quote your own marketing material, the most advanced and secure electronic banking and retail network in Europe when describing the Horizon system. So your own communications to sell your own product around the world, you were using Horizon as a great example, yet you're saying here now that errors were known and fine. So when was the first error, again month and year, passed to the post office?
So I can't tell you month and year.
So will you commit to writing to this committee to tell us when?
So I know that Sewin, this is one of the phases of the investigation with Sewin, particularly about when the system's rolled out, the training for the sub-postmasters, etc. So I can commit to the chair that I will revert back into what we have already submitted to the inquiry in this area. It was an area that was discussed early on.
Quite remarkable, we don't know when. Okay, but let's go to the point now about the Horizon system. David McDonnell told the inquiry, who was part of the Horizon development team, and I quote again, of 8 people in the development team, 2 were very good, another 2 were mediocre, but we could work with them. And then there was probably 3 or 4 who just weren't up to it and weren't capable of producing professional code. My stepfather spent his entire professional life writing code for many different IT firms. Sounds quite worrying that half, well actually 2/3 of your team are incapable. Out of the current Horizon development team, are they very good, mediocre, or incapable?
So the current Horizon system is very different to the old system. I do not believe we have got software development taking place today. The system is in and is just being operated. It is not being developed.
Can I ask, Mr. Reed said he's now met 30 sub-postmasters and postmistresses. How many have Fujitsu executives or yourself met?
I have not met any sub-postmasters physically.
And has any Fujitsu executive met any of the victims?
I do not know, Mr. Gills.
Why has Fujitsu decided not to meet victims?
I have not decided to meet the victims. I have personally watched the drama on TV and read the evidence that was given in the impact statements by sub-postmasters, and I've also watched some of the YouTube videos of it.
Can I ask, why is it taking an ITV drama to inspire Fujitsu to sort of become much more forthcoming? Why is it Fujitsu did not decide to go out and reach out? I think they had legal representatives who would have happily, I'm sure, put people in contact. Why are Fujitsu executives happy to not meet when actually to the post office have only just at least started, but at least they're doing it? Why is it Fujitsu feel they're above that?
I certainly don't feel that I'm personally above that, and I don't believe that the company feels that they're above that either. What I do believe is that we need to get to the bottom of the entire truth and make sure that truth is transparent and we don't just jump to a particular soundbite.